Hi, everybody. So, this is our first video podcast. I'm pretty excited about it. And so, what more fun can we do than online dating with a disability? And I thought this topic would be awesome. And so, we're starting with Rob Cella, as you can see. Hey, Rob, welcome.
Hello.
He's up in Canada. And so, I'm here in Minnesota, and he's close to me, which is kind of cool. And so, we're going to find out everything about him right now. So, hey, Rob, thanks for joining us on this pretty fun topic. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
So let's start. I don't know. I always feel a little bit weird about starting with people's injury story, but if you don't mind, let's start with that.
Yeah, I had my accident playing high school football when I was 15.
Oh,
I
okay.
was in grade 10 at the time. Basically, long story short, I was playing defense and I went to make a tackle, and the guy I was tackling sort of squared up to me at the last moment, and instead of hitting him with my shoulder like I was supposed to, I ended up hitting him with the crown of my helmet, and
Oh
my neck
gosh,
obviously took the brunt of the force, and I blew out the front of my C5 vertebrae. So
that's a common injury. And sorry, how many years ago did that happen?
that was 1991.
Wow, you've been injured way longer than even I have. I'm always talking to people that are newbies. So that means you're what, 40 something?
43.
43. And so you're a C6 quad, right?
C5.
C5.
Yeah.
So what's your mobility like? Do you use a power chair and stuff?
No, I use a manual chair. I'm actually pretty lucky. I'm quite incomplete. I have almost fully intact sensation below the level of injury, and
Oh,
I
cool.
can kind of like wiggle in all the sort of muscles below my level of injury to some degree or another. Not really functional, where you could say
Yeah,
stand up and walk or something, but I can wiggle toes and stuff like that, that sort of thing.
that's cool. That's way better than what I got.
Every
So
injury is different.
yeah, it's interesting how incomplete injuries end up. So that means you can you can't stand though, right? You just can
No,
feel. That's so
yeah,
weird. It's found quite crazy. So after your injury, and you were a teenager, so that must have
yeah.
been really difficult. Since the topic is dating, let's talk about your dating life after your injury as a teenager a little bit. What did you do after your injury? Did you even think about dating, or did you write it off for many years like a lot of people do?
Well, I mean, as I said, I was 15 when I had my injury. I had a few girlfriends before in high school.
Right.
Um, I was basically away for a year after my injury in Toronto doing rehab, and when I came back, I guess I had my first girlfriend about 4 months after I got back.
Okay.
Um, it was quite different trying to relate. I think, especially being a guy and being somebody who was very athletic. I was captain of the football team, basketball team, track and field. I was used to being sort of, somebody who could be the one going forward and aggressive. And
Right.
then when you're in a chair, it's a little different. I used to joke some of my friends, what am I supposed to do? Go to a school dance and ask the girl to sit on my lap? It's a little awkward to try to find a way to get that in to talk to somebody. But
Yeah, it is.
I eventually sort of jumped in and asked a girl out that I liked, and we went out for, I guess it was about 2 months or so, and it
Yeah.
was a good starting point and kind of getting myself back into the idea of having a girlfriend and figuring out who I was now in terms of being myself and being in a wheelchair yet still just trying to be myself basically.
Yeah, and that's not easy getting to that point. So bravo for you for like getting out there right away. But that's crazy. So okay, so that injury kind of ended right away. And then what did you do like in terms of your life before you started dating as an adult? Did you go to college and stuff?
Yeah, I completed high school and I went to university for 5 years.
That's awesome.
I took a honors commerce with a major in systems, so I ended up being in school for 5 years because I took a year of internship with IBM at that time. And
Wow.
after I graduated, which was around 2000, I started my career with IBM and I worked with them for the first 9 years of my career.
That's pretty great. That's a great company to work for, I bet, right?
Yeah, it was a great start to my career.
And are they friendly to disability, like employees with disabilities and
That's
accommodations?
the thing I found over my career. I've worked, I did the first 9 years of my career with IBM, and then I did 3 years with the local hospital, and then after that, I joined Cancer Care Ontario, which is now on the Ontario Ministry of Health.
That's
And
awesome.
I've been lucky because I've worked for um, big business and as well as government, and both have been very accommodating in terms of making whatever accommodations the person with a disability has. There's a lot of different people that have, various disabilities, whether it be visual or
Hmm.
physical. And yeah, I didn't really need a lot of assistance because when I started with IBM, they were very accommodating in that it was troublesome for me to move from Thunder Bay to Toronto and get the supportive care that I needed. So they
Yeah,
basically just said, why don't you just work from your home? So I
that's
basically
nice.
worked for 9 years for IBM from my home.
Wow.
And that was great because, I already had my whole support system in place as far as PSWs helping me, and, my
That's
friends and
great.
family were all here. And I was still new to my injury and still trying to figure out, being an adult and taking care of everything you have to. So it was really good to have that support system around, and
That's
so it worked out
nice.
well.
So what's your current job title? This is not really the topic. I'm just kind of curious.
I'm a quality assurance analyst for
Okay.
Cancer Care Ontario. Basically, I do testing of code to make sure it works properly and follows all the business
Awesome.
rules that it's supposed to before it's sort of put into production to help whatever area of the medicine that it's going into.
That's a good job. That's
It's,
awesome. So, okay, so let's go back to the dating topic now that I got your
okay.
job stuff figured out. So, when you started working as a young adult, after you got out of college, did you date through college? And when did you have any
I,
serious relationships back then?
I wouldn't say that I wasn't looking. I mean, I think you're always looking.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have any girlfriends when I was in university. I was very focused on getting my studies done and really worried about getting my career going so I could support myself.
Yeah.
And I went out with a lot of friends and that, and there was girls around that I flirted with and joked with. And I think maybe had I been a little more aggressive and confident, I probably could have asked some
Right.
girls out. But I don't know, I was still kind of feeling my way out in terms of being an adult in the dating world. And so I didn't
Yeah.
really have any girlfriends through university, and actually following graduation for quite a few years until I kind of got to the point where I was sort of realizing that my avenues for meeting people wasn't the same as everyone else. Because,
Yeah.
for example, they could go to a house party that maybe I couldn't get in and they couldn't help me get into.
Right.
So I kind of got to a point where I'm like, oh, everyone else is having girlfriends. I need to find a way to expedite my own
Yeah.
search.
Mhm.
And around that time, things like Lab of Life and stuff were starting to
Oh
be
yeah.
advertised, and I was like, okay, well, why not? It's another avenue, and I'd heard some friends say that they had tried it, so I kind of figured, all right, what's there to lose?
All right, stop there. For anyone watching, what's lava life? Just to recap.
Lava Life is like, I guess for depending on your age group, it's an early version of like Plenty of Fish and all those ones. It was kind of one of those, I think the first ones that I saw that was sort of advertised on TV, and
Right.
it's kind of an introductory to the whole online dating world, right?
Yeah, it wasn't online. I thought it was a phone service too. So I kind of forgot. It's been so many
I
years, but I
don't
remember the name.
know. I think it did have some different features. I just went with the online one where
Okay.
it was actually free, and then just like any other one, you could pay to have
Right.
some extra features and whatever. But yeah, that was kind of my first
Okay.
venture into online dating.
And how did that go? Did you find any ladies that you actually that were worth your time?
It's kind of funny. I think I started going on that maybe around when I was like 27, 28.
Hmm.
And I met some people that, I went out with on the odd date here for, say, coffee or to a movie.
Yeah.
Some that I had a little bit of chemistry with, but no one I really hit it off to the point where I thought, okay, someday I want to try to date, and it was going somewhere. And the chemistry was on both sides. And then eventually I did meet somebody,
Mhm.
and that was kind of, I guess you'd say, like my first significant adult relationship that
Cool.
spawned from being online. And so yeah, that turned out to be a
So
4 year.
how many years was that for?
I was with that girl for 4 years.
Awesome. Well, see, that's cool.
Yeah,
So Lava Life produced a 4 year or was Lava Life, right?
yeah, lab life.
That's that's amazing. So that's great. And so okay, so let's get back to that questions because I sent you some questions and I don't want to stray too far from the list because there's some really good questions that I have for you. So okay, so you decided to use Lava Life now when that relationship ended. Now let's talk about when you put your profile back on the internet,
Yeah.
your dating profile. What did you decide to put your disability in your profile, and if you did, how much did you say in your profile?
No, actually, I kind of made the decision not to put my injury or any mention of my injury in the profile. Basically, what I just did is I had a headshot that was kind of from the chest up.
Okay.
And what I figured is, I always kind of figured the one drawback to online is it's not a real-time conversation where you're in front of somebody where you can kind of, I hate to use this word, sell yourself, right? Like you're not in a dynamic conversation where you can just dive into what you're interested in or pick up on something they say. And
Yeah.
so because you're in that compartmentalized trading of you say a little bit, the other person says a little bit, I figured, you know what, I'm not going to load the conversation against myself. I'm just going to write a really sort of detailed, long profile about who I am, what I'm interested in, some of the things I like to do, and just kind of put
Mm-hmm.
it out there with a picture and then see who responds to that. And usually what I would do is if I contacted somebody or they contacted me, I'd sort of start the conversation off with the usual,
Mm-hmm.
what do you do and what are you interested in? It's just kind of set a foundation and see if there was enough interest that it's actually starting to go somewhere where it's,
Yep.
to the point where like, okay, I should start to fill in the blanks.
Yep.
And basically what I would do is when I got to that stage, I'd basically kind of do like a little disclosure email. I'd sort of say, okay, well, I have a little bit of a curveball I need to throw out. The reason I haven't thrown it out is because kind of like what I said to you,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a dynamic conversation. I didn't want to, not that I was hiding it in any way, but it's not what defines me and it's not who I am. It's just part of my life.
Yeah.
And then I basically give sort of like a short little summary, like I had my injury when I was 15. I use a
Okay.
Mac wheelchair. I have mobility and sensation. If you want more details, I can fill in the blanks. And then I'd basically say, this is just who I am. If that throws you, okay, no problem. Good luck in your search. And if it doesn't, I'd
Yeah.
love to keep talking to you and get to know you and see if there's any chemistry and just kind of put the ball in that person's court and sort of see what the response was.
Awesome. And so how did that go? How was that approach? Was it pretty successful, did you find?
I think more times than not,
Mm-hmm.
it went over fairly well. I can only think of maybe two people that I talked to that really sort of were taken aback, like, I can't believe you didn't tell me that up front. And I was kind of like, well, what's the big deal? Like I think one of the women at the time had a kid and she had casually mentioned it wasn't in her profile. I'm like, well, I didn't react to you having a child that way. It's
Ooh.
just part of who I am. Everyone has something that they don't put out when you first meet somebody. I mean, nobody goes
Yeah,
on a first date and dumps all the dirt on their life, right?
that's true.
So
Yeah.
um, aside from those two, pretty much everyone else was very positive. A couple women were just like, I don't care, like totally not thrown by it, and they didn't even really ask that much after I said it.
That's great.
And yeah, most of the other women were, oh, okay, and they'd start to ask a little bit more questions to try to understand maybe what my situation is, and then you get around to, well, can you go do this or can you do that or what can you feel and that sort of thing. And I found most people were fairly open and receptive to it. It
That's
didn't
awesome.
really close off that many conversations that I found.
Well, that's cruel. When I was single, I would always put my disability in my profile because I was worried that I would anger men when they would find out, like they would come back at me with a mean message. That was my fear. But it's nice to hear that wasn't the case with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a trade-off. I mean,
Hmm.
you could say it or you could not say it, and you're going to get a little bit of each side of it. I think it's just
Yeah.
how you feel comfortable presenting yourself. Like I
Yeah.
said, I've always felt comfortable when I meet somebody face to face, just being myself, and the chair is just out there. It's there for you to see. It's obvious.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to talk to somebody that you've never talked to, I've just always felt more comfortable putting a little bit more of myself out there, and then the person kind of gets, okay, well, this guy's interesting enough that I want to talk to him. And then I put out the chair, and if it doesn't throw them, then cool. Then that's somebody maybe I can get to know better. And
I
if
like
it's
that.
not, then yeah.
And what you said was really interesting to me about how you kind of put the all when you put your disability and all this right away into your profile or in the first message, maybe it does kind of put you, and you're right, at a disadvantage in a way. And I never really thought of it in that way. In a way, I thought it was owning it, but it does, unfortunately, for a lot of people, they kind of run away afraid when they
I
see,
think
you know.
I think it's kind of a catch-22 because when you say it, the person obviously knows it up front, but I mean, when you say it later, they're still
Mhm.
going to have to deal with it regardless.
Yeah.
And I think regardless if you meet somebody that isn't going to be thrown by it, whether you put it out up front or put it out later,
Mhm.
isn't really going to matter. If they see you as an individual, they want to get to know because you have common interests or they
Yeah.
just think you're attractive or whatever, then there's going to be that chemistry.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's really bad either way. I think it's just what the person is most comfortable doing.
That's awesome. I like that, Rob. You've enlightened me on this topic, so that's cool. Okay, so let's go on to the next question. So how did you approach the ladies on the site that you ended up, so what was this next site you decided to use, and how did you approach people, or did you wait for women to approach you?
I think early on, uh, I sort of sat back a little bit to see who would message me. I think traditionally men, my fiance is going to laugh at me when I say this, men need to be a bit more of the aggressor. There's a funny story behind that I'll tell you after. Um, but sometimes I would have women message me, and other times I would contact them.
Okay.
I think probably 2/3 of the time I would be sort of putting the feeler out and trying to start a conversation
Yeah.
and seeing where it went. But I think it's all depends on your personality and how forward you feel comfortable being.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. So what was the site you ended up, which other dating sites did you try, and which were your favorites?
I basically gravitated to Plenty of Fish,
Okay.
just because it was free, and basically every other site that I kind of checked out basically had the same people on it more or less. And I
Okay.
kind of figured the people that are not wanting to spend money on a profile on a dating site are probably going to gravitate to this one. And I didn't really, being in Thunder Bay, being a city of only about 100,000,
Right.
and we're kind of isolated a little bit up here. I figured you're just going to end up getting most of the same people. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
just figured I'll stick with Plenty of Fish. There's lots of people on there. I'll just kind of go with that and see how it goes.
Yeah. And you never decided like to try Tinder or an app or something like that?
No, I never really. I'm not. I'm kind of old school. I'm not a hookup kind of person.
Okay. Yep.
Um,
Hmm.
I kind of, the ones like Tinder and that kind of struck me a little bit too meat market kind of thing, like swipe left, swipe right kind of on somebody. I kind of
Yeah.
figured somebody's already looking at my picture if they're on Plenty of Fish. And the nice thing about that is that, putting a little bit more of a profile on there, I
True.
can give the person an idea of who I am, what I'm interested in, and maybe not to make it sound generic, sell myself a little bit, right?
Well,
And
that's what I like. I like that. There's nothing worse than a guy in a dating profile with an empty profile, just a photo, and he doesn't take the time to write anything. So,
I had a few women actually say, "Wow, you wrote a lot," and I'm like, "Well, every woman always says she hates reading a profile that's, hi, I'm so and so, I like football, message me kind of thing, right? So I figured it's better to explain a little more upfront than not.
absolutely. And it makes you seem like you actually, care, and that's what women want to see. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit more. We already touched on how you did eventually tell, these girls about your disability and stuff. And at what point did they ask you about, can you have sex, and how did you cover that topic when they asked about that?
I actually found most women were fairly forward. They got to that fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Um, Usually, once you start talking about what you can feel or not feel and that sort of thing,
Hmm.
you start to gravitate towards that conversation. Like, um, when I was trying to explain that I have the sensation of touch, like if you touch my leg, I always tried to, when I talked about my injury, keep it light and keep it kind of joking and sarcastic where it wasn't sounding clinical. So I would
Yeah.
sometimes say something like, well, like I have sensation in my leg. So if you ran your hand up my leg, I could feel it, to kind of be a little flirtatious and joking about it. And it would eventually gravitate towards, well, can you have sex? Does it work? That
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And I would just basically level with them and say, for me in particular, I'm lucky to have function intact. So I'd be like, yeah, my functioning's intact. Um, you know, Even I'm like any other guy, if you're too tired or something, it might not work well. And then I'd usually make a flippant joke about like, well, if it's not working well, my tongue's not paralyzed kind of thing, just to be really overt and try to get
Yeah.
across the point that I'm like any other person. All the same sexual thoughts go through my head. Just because I'm in a chair, it doesn't make a difference. Like I remember talking to a girl in high school that was kind of a casual friend, but I had a crush on, and she was really, when I came back, treating me like, with kid gloves on, and I was kind of like, you know what? When you walk away, I'm checking your butt out like everyone else. I haven't changed because I'm sitting down. I'm still the same guy, and just expect me to react like any other guy.
Damn right. We're not asexual people, and that's important
Exactly.
to stress that. I like that. Okay, so that's a good way to explain it. That's all. Be funny. I like to do that too. So I already know a little bit of a background that you have a girlfriend that you met on Plenty of Fish. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
and how that happened. How did you guys end up, talking on Plenty of Fish? And then let's talk about your first date.
Okay. Well, I did meet my fiance on Plenty of Fish.
Ooh.
It was kind of funny in that I was talking earlier about, as a guy, you sometimes need to be more aggressive. I went on Plenty of Fish after coming out of a long-term relationship, and I was just sort of starting to put myself back out there, figure, okay, well, maybe I'll try to meet somebody just to go for coffee or a movie, just kind of expand your social circle again. And
Mhm.
I have a friend who's a nurse that I've known since rehab, and she always told me, when you go back in the dating scene, look for somebody that gives you a spark. And so I started looking through pictures and I came across my fiance's profile and I
Mhm.
stopped and I'm like, wow, she's so beautiful. And I
Oh.
started reading the profile and even though I've been in the chair a long time, I'm always a little self-conscious about the things I
Right.
have difficulties with. And
Yeah.
one of the things she said in her profile is about how she loved to travel and she'd gone to Tokyo and all these places. I'm like, oh God, I've hardly done any traveling. It's harder for me. And then there was some comment
Oh,
about
yeah.
she wanted a guy who was established, that she didn't have to support. And
Mhm.
I still hadn't gotten to the point where I was getting my home built, and I was still renting at the time. And so I just kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable. I'm trying to think of, I want to say something to her and break the ice, but I don't know what to do. So
Yeah.
I kept going back and back to her profile every day, looking at her pictures, trying to think of something clever to say, because I wanted to break the ice. And on Plenty of Fish, you can see who's looking at your profile.
Yeah, you can.
And she could see that I was looking at her profile. So
Mhm.
one day, I guess it was about a week after I started looking at her pictures, she messaged me and she's like,
Oh.
hi. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm on the spot. I gotta say something. So I started
You're really
chatting
you
with her.
you were stalking her profile basically, and
No,
she saw
well, I was stalking her profile. I couldn't get up the courage to message her because I'm like,
you.
if I'm gonna take this shot, I don't want to come across like every other guy that's probably messaging like, hey, what's up? I wanted to be, you know, different and stand out. And I didn't think about the fact that maybe she's seeing that I'm looking at her profile.
Right.
So she initiated the contact and we started talking. And it was just the usual, like, what do you do for a living? And, what are you interested in kind of thing.
Mhm.
And the funny thing is, she knew me already from high school. We had gone to high school together. And I didn't recognize her because her hair was now dark and long. And in high school, it was short and blonde.
Aw.
And I usually pride myself on being really great with faces. So we were trading conversation back and forth. And I got to the point where, like, okay, I got to say about my chair. So I gave my big, long explanation about, oh, I had a high school football accident, blah, 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 blah. And I sent the message off and I thought, oh, she's probably going to read that and not be interested. And
Oh,
like
yeah.
a half hour later, ding. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check my phone. And she's like, oh, yeah, I know exactly who you are. We went to high school together. And I was like, what? And I started going back through the picture and I'm like, I couldn't place the face. And I'm like,
Oh.
okay, you got to tell me your name. And the moment she told me her name, I knew who she was. She was a grade above me when I was in high school, and her sister was in some of my classes. I'm like, oh my God.
That's so
And it was kind of funny because then I joked her. I'm like, oh, I guess I can't lie anymore if you know who I am. You know all my deep dark secrets. And she's like, well, actually, I kind of asked about you a little bit already. And I'm like, what do you
what?
mean? She's like, well, I asked my sister, and we had a couple common female friends in common that were still friends on Facebook. So she had actually asked a bit about who I was and like what kind of guy I was, and
Mm.
so she totally knew that I was already in a chair, and
Oh,
it was a curveball. I wasn't expecting it, but it was really good in the sense that I didn't. It forced me not to hide anything, and kind of the conversation got going a lot quicker than that.
I love
Our
that
first,
story. I love
yeah.
that she was so like you already knew that she was going to be just fine with your disability because she obviously knew everything about it. So
Well,
that's
she didn't know everything, but she had talked to
yeah,
her sister, and you know, girls talk, and you start asking different questions and trying to figure out things, and
yeah.
so it kind of helped break the ice in terms of talking about it, and it didn't feel as much like it wasn't a surprise, right? It was out there
Yeah.
already, and I just could be myself.
Was she
Uh,
a lady you had your eyes on in high school, or was she someone you didn't really like?
I didn't really know her that well in high school. I'd seen her a few times in the hallway, and I thought she was pretty, but
That's so
I never
cute.
really got a chance to interact with her because she was sort of in a different social circle and a grade above me, and so
Yeah.
I just kind of knew her as so and so's sister, and yeah, so I just kind of knew. But we had a lot of friends in common. And it was
Mhm.
kind of weird after we got talking. There was so many times throughout the 20 some odd years since high school where we almost crossed paths, like
Really?
places that I would go to eat that she was at, and places that she worked that I would go and I didn't realize she was working there.
Oh, that's
And
weird.
it was really, it's one of those things, just timing, right? You just cross paths at the right time.
So, okay, so when you finally met in person and
Yeah.
I mean, what was your first few dates like? Did you feel right away that this was gonna be like your fiance? Because sometimes people feel that right away.
I yeah, I think there was chemistry between us right away. Our first date, we just went for a bite to eat and drinks at a local restaurant, and I got there. I always get everywhere early when I'm going for something
Yeah.
where I'm first meeting somebody, and I was like pacing in a circle for like 15 minutes until she arrived. And when she came in, first thing she did was said hello and gave me a hug, and that totally broke the ice and kind of calmed me down. And we went and
Nice.
sat down, we had dinner and chatted back and forth. And I was still nervous as heck, chatting a mile a minute. But we had some really great chemistry right off the bat. The conversation was good in that, and
Yeah.
we went out later to hang out and sort of chat and that. And I think that was a Friday we went out, and we actually ended up going out Friday, Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday.
That's when
So
you know. I love to
yeah,
hear
so
stories like this. You know right away when you
yeah,
suddenly start seeing them all the time.
yeah. There's the chemistry. I mean, you can tell when you're with somebody the way you look at each other,
Oh,
or when you avert your eyes, and sort of the chemistry's there right away.
I
Um,
love that. Okay, so how long did you guys date until you asked her to marry you? That's a big thing.
we just got engaged back in March,
Okay,
so we were together.
congratulations.
Thank you. We were together about 8 months.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, you are romantic. I like this story so
It's
much.
kind of it's kind
Mhm.
of funny. We went out. You on your early dates. Um, you go out for things like 1 month anniversaries, and we had actually gone out for an anniversary dinner, and we're sitting at the table, and she was sitting across from me and sort of smiling and giggling a little bit. And I kind of was like, "What are you laughing about?" And she just matter of factly said, "You realize in about a year we're going to get married, right?" And I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "That's really forward," and I kind of laughed about it. But I'm like, "That's." It was. I found it flattering because I thought, "Wow, like this is a girl that I'm head over heels for, and she's thinking about me in that way." So it was really a
That's
nice moment
awesome.
for me.
How did you propose? Did you, because I think some guys in chairs are always wondering about the getting down on the knee thing, right?
we were um, we were talking about we had started talking about maybe getting married, and dates and stuff like that. And we decided to go for dinner. I thought, okay, she wanted to. We decided like, okay, we're gonna get married at some time. I said, I'm not gonna tell you, but I'm gonna propose at some time. We talked about it, like we were being adult about it. But I said, what, you're not gonna know when it's coming. And we had gone out and we had designed. She had wanted to design the engagement ring, so
Oh,
that
cool.
was already designed, and I'd gone and paid for it, and she didn't know I had it. And I
Mhm.
said, okay, well, why don't we go for dinner one night? And it was like a Saturday night. I'm like, oh, we'll go try this new restaurant. Funny thing is, it was like one of the worst meals she ever had. It was like an undercooked chicken. I'm like, oh, this is not starting out well for the evening. I thought, she's gonna just think the night's horrible and want to go home. And basically, what I had planned is there's a lookout that looks out over Lake Superior at a waterfront. So I thought, what, after the meal, we'll go up there. I'll just kind of make an excuse, like, let's go stop and just, chat for a bit and look out at the stars. And I drive my own van, and basically we drove up there and we were sitting chatting. And I have like 60/40 doors that I open my ramp out of. So I was kind of fumbling with the controls to try to get the doors to crack open a little bit because it was dark in the van, and she needed to be able to see what I was doing, right? And she's like,
Oh,
"What are
no.
you doing?" And it's the middle of winter. She's like, I'm just I need the light on for a second. I was trying to think of something calm to say, and I finally got the light on. She told me later, she thought, I thought you wanted to go for a walk or something. I'm thinking it's freezing outside. And anyway, I had the ring in my pocket. I said I needed a light on for a second because it's dark. I want to be able to see you when I talk to you. So we just kind of got back into conversation again. And when she wasn't really paying attention to me and looking out at the scenery, I just kind of said, there's something I want to say to you. And she turned. And at that point, I pulled out the ring, and I had some words I'd sort of practiced in my head that I wanted to say to her, and I proposed to her then. And
I love
that's
it.
what happened.
So
Yeah.
did you have the ring box on your lap, or did you figure out a way to hold it, or like,
I
I'm
had
just
basically what I had done is I put the ring box in. I had a winter coat on, so I had a loose pocket. So I'd
okay.
opened it enough that I could sit it in the pocket and basically get my fingers on it and bring it around after she had looked away for a second.
Oh,
So
that's
basically, it was right there. I was just trying to make sure not to like knock it on the floor or something because
cute.
I was nervous.
Oh, I love that. I bet she was a little not super. She was surprised, but she had a feeling it was coming, right?
Well, we had talked about getting engaged in the summer. Like I said, we had talked
Oh,
about maybe at 1 year we'll get engaged. So
oh,
I
your
was well
daughter.
ahead of the curve, and I figured I want to do this because I don't want her to be, okay, maybe it's going to be next week.
I
So
like smart
I don't
man.
think yeah, I don't think she was expecting it. And
Okay, so I can't believe it. So you're an engaged man, and when is your wedding date plan? Is it 2020? Probably sounds good, doesn't it? 2020,
we're talking about August of 2021 right
August of
now. We're just
2020.
looking around.
Well, that is an amazing. You have like the best online dating story ever, pretty much. Like it was a little rough in the beginning, and then you met someone, and now you're gonna get married. Like, I almost don't even want to ask you about your horror story dates because it might just ruin all the great things you've told me.
Um, I was I think I was fairly lucky in
Yeah.
that most of the people I went out with dates early on, I tried to sort of vet the conversation a little bit to make sure it wasn't going to be like a horrendous experience, like go out with somebody you totally didn't have any idea with. There
Yeah.
was a few dates that didn't go well because I didn't have chemistry. Like one I went on and it was supposed to be a lunch date and the girl showed up like 20 minutes late. And then when we ordered the food, they got my food wrong and they're like, oh, we'll bring it right back out. But they didn't. And then she had ate and then my food came and I was eating. And so there was no conversation.
Oh
And even
no.
when we went to leave, I like knocked my jacket on the floor and ended up rolling on top of it. And I'm like, oh, this is just, you knew nothing was going right, eh? But I didn't have any dates where it was just like, I need, you're hoping for a friend to text you so you can get out of there with an emergency. I was lucky in that sense, but
Mhm,
I was fairly selective in who I'd, invite to go out for coffee or whatever on the initial um, starts of things. So
mhm.
I didn't run into too many bad dates per se. Most of them were, you know, okay. And if it was just maybe a case of not having chemistry and, that's it, you realize it's just not going to work or whatever kind of thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're a quality analyst, which means you're kind of one of those minds that is pretty not calculated, but you're very
Calculated. I think
yeah,
about things through
yeah,
ahead of time, and
yeah.
I mean, you never know how it's going to go. Sometimes you go out with somebody you think, oh, this is going to be
Mhm,
somebody I'm going to click with, and you get there and you're like, there's no chemistry. And sometimes it's the opposite. And kind of one of the things that
mhm,
sort of I had to learn as I went out, started dating again,
mhm.
getting it back in my head that, you know what, it's not always going to be that they're going to reject me. I'd gone out on a couple first dates and I'm like, you know what, I don't have any interest in this person. And
Right?
it kind of reset my mind that I'm just like everyone else still. I got to get out of my head that the chair is an obstacle. It's just part of me
That is
and
great,
just keep putting myself out there kind of thing.
I think everyone in a wheelchair needs to work on that. It's a constant battle too. We're always, I think, thinking we're less than or something, and then and then you have to remind yourself that you're not. I've been paralyzed since 1993, and I still kind of have that issue as well.
I think
Maybe.
everyone has, I think regardless of whether you're in a chair or not, everyone has their own own insecurities. But when you're in a chair and it's something that's a lot different than what everyone else deals with, you're a little more hypersensitive to it.
Yeah.
But I always, like I've said this to friends, you kind of have to look at dating, like to use a sports analogy, like baseball, you got to keep stepping up to the plate and swinging. And you're not always going to hit a home run. You're going to strike out a lot, but eventually you will find somebody and you'll hit that home run. And when you find the right person, it's worth it. And I'm very lucky. Like I'm still self-conscious 27 some odd years after my accident about certain things. And my
Yeah.
fiance is great. She's always like, I don't care about your chair. You're just who you are. I don't even see it anymore. Yeah, there's some things we need to do differently or take into consideration if we go somewhere or whatever, but you're
Yeah.
just Rob to me. You're like no other guy. You're just another guy, right?
I love that. I love it. It is super true. Now I have a couple more questions. We're
Sure.
almost done now. So back to this, like for someone that's listening that wants to do online dating, is there any advice you would give to someone who wants to try online dating, um, and they're not sure like what site or how, should they do exactly what you did? Or it sounds you were basically, saying earlier, kind of do what feels right, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really personal to the individual. If you're comfortable, like you said, putting your disability out up front, then do that. If you're someone that isn't, then maybe do it more like mine.
Yeah.
But when you do get to talking about it, don't be ashamed or embarrassed about it.
Yep.
And also don't put hyper focus on it. Like just I always used to just say, this is the way it is. Hopefully that doesn't throw you.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it does, that's okay. But I still live my life. I go and do things. There's things I want to do, like travel. There's things I do. I go to sporting events, movies, whatever. I have hobbies, blah, 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 blah. And just, just put it out there like you would anything else. Like, to use an example, like I wouldn't introduce myself as Rob as the guy in a wheelchair, and I wouldn't introduce you as Tiffany, the girl with glasses. You're just Tiffany. You wear glasses. So what?
Absolutely.
It's just part of who you are.
Yeah. Or that lady with the kids. She wouldn't go, yeah, I'm the lady with the kids, by the way. Like, you don't start
I
with
happen to have a
that.
kid. That's just
No.
part of who you are. Everyone has a different package, and everyone comes with some quirks and some baggage, and that just happens to be what you come with. So just, deal with it and put it out there, but focus on being you and talking about things that you like to do and that maybe you might share in common, or someone that you're looking for that, say, likes music or going to concerts or
Right.
travel or whatever it is you want to do.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's about if your personalities match the disability. Yeah, they got to be cool with it, but it's not everything. And I think that's
Exactly. If you have chemistry with someone, it really doesn't matter. Like I've learned that. Like I come with the wheelchair and what comes along with that. And when you date other people, maybe somebody has issues with stress, or they have a child that's young, or they're coming out of a divorce, or everyone has something that they bring into a relationship, and that's just part of who you are.
absolutely.
You get the person as a package deal. You don't get to specify what you want and don't want. So just go forward and be confident.
That's a really good advice, and I think we should end it there because I think we couldn't do any better than that. So thank you so much, Rob, for sharing your story with us, because I know it can be a little bit weird. It's a personal thing, but I think it really is great to hear a success story like yours. It's really awesome, and I'm glad you found somebody up there in Thunder Bay.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And good luck, and I hope that your wedding is beautiful. All right, have a great evening, and I'll talk to you later. All right, yeah, bye. So, hey everybody, we are back with our second guest for Online Dating with a Disability, and we are joined by the lovely Brook McCall, and she lives in Portland, Oregon. And hello, Brook, it's super cool to finally meet you.
Hi, Tiffany. It's wonderful to meet you as well.
This is so cool, and you look like you have a cool view outside your house there. It looks beautiful.
We do. It's nice right now. I don't think you can really see, but there's all kinds of fall trees. So
nice. I love this time. This is a beautiful time of year, and it's kind of fun to talk about online dating this time of year. People always call it cuffing season, and I don't know wherever that came from. It's terrible, but. So let's start at the very beginning. I gave you some questions, so we're gonna kind of start with just like demographics, like how old. I'm not gonna even ask how old you are, but I know what I'm gonna ask is how you were injured, because that is a little interesting, and I think people like to know. You don't have to go into full detail, but we could start with that and go from there.
Sure. I'm in my 30s, my late 30s actually, but I don't feel that old, but anyhow, I was injured when I was 22.
Okay.
So it's been a long time that I've been in a chair. I'm a C4 quad, and I fell off my balcony. So I got locked out of my house, and my neighbor suggested I do it, and I was like, of course I can do that. So, like that kind of thing.
That's crazy. So you've been injured for over 10 years, huh?
Yep. I'm getting close to like a big milestone, not in a handful of years, but
okay.
Yeah.
So you were injured, and I think you're from California originally. So where did you do your rehabilitation and that kind of thing?
So I was I was going to school at UC Santa Barbara when I got hurt, and then from there I was lucky, and the director of their local rehab sent me to Craig, so I got to go to Colorado, and I got to do a full, the full experience that I think was a really nice start. It put me off to a good, good place getting started. So.
That's great. How long did you stay there for?
2.5 months. So
Okay.
I was there for 2.5 months, and then back to California.
Okay.
And I moved to San Diego pretty quick.
Wow. So. That's a nice place to live for a while. I know you're in Oregon now, but let's kind of start like when you went back to normal life, when you went back home to California, and talking about, since the topic is online dating, were you in a relationship at the time of your injury, and what happened after that when you were injured?
Yeah, so as a young lady, I was from the age of 17 through just right after being 21, I was in a relationship with my first real boyfriend, but that's, started when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Then we moved to San Diego together, and then we moved to Chicago, and back and forth. I had been a number of places, but when I moved to Santa Barbara, we had split up. I, was ready to kind of see adulthood on my own, and so I had just about one whole year and a half of singledom as a young adult prior to my injury. I would say it was probably much more like 6 months that I felt like I was single, and, just getting over a 4-year first relationship can be interesting. So I had 6 big months of, I don't know what you would want to say, like playing the field or just being a young woman, dating.
Yeah.
So I did that. It was fun. I definitely can say I was feeling like I was had success and a lot of options. When I had my injury, I thought it was really interesting, the kind of reactions that people had.
Let's talk about that, because that's what's going to actually be my next question, because that's totally, you're a different person, so people are going to treat you differently in the dating world.
I think so. In terms of online dating or just dating at that point, I had even in high school, my friends and I, we would just go on AOL. I was just in that kind of generation where we were like chatting a fair amount to, even with people who you go to school with, or I don't know, there was a point where I decided that I liked college boys even when I was in high school. So we'd like to chat on AOL and like hang out with people.
I did the same thing, just so you know. You're not the only one.
And then after injury, and then even in my singledom, and I feel like I talked a lot online to people. I met people in all different scopes. It wasn't only like dating, but I feel like I had friends all over in the country just because I had felt a little bit worldly and traveled, where I could just keep in touch with people.
Yeah.
So after my injury, those first couple of years, like at first I lived with my parents, and then my grandmother and she actually helped me, or she was one who moved with me to San Diego. And I had a lot of free time, and my computer was my autonomy. Especially those early days when you don't have much going on, you're adapting to life. And so I was on the computer a lot and chatting with new people, and then of course with like people I already knew, and having some of those really nice conversations that I felt like they were intimate conversations, not necessarily like sexually, just getting to talk with people and really bond with people in a natural way. So I had this special thoughts on my idea of what ideal like internet communications are, and then obviously there's been a big evolution in that over the years in terms of online dating and the way people interact. I used to love writing long emails and like that back and forth exchange that it's harder to find at this point, but anyhow,
I know it has changed. I agree. And I don't like the swiping and let's meet. I remember the old style of really going back and forth and getting to know somebody.
So I'm on board with you completely on that. I loved that, and as somebody who loves words, and we're both writers, there's joy in that, and I really liked bonding with people in that way. So anyhow, so that was early days.
So you were dating, obviously, then at the time of your injury, you were being single. And so at what point did you ever meet someone since you've been injured that you ever wanted to date, or have you just been kind of just getting to know people over the years?
No, I totally dated. So it took me early on, like I said, I was living with my grandmother, but I had moved to San Diego, and then I went back to school at UCSD, and I became independent. So I had caregivers, but I lived independently, and they were my age, and so they were dating, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. I felt like I was, I had things settled for myself in a way where I felt like, okay, it's time, I can do this. Not to mention I was, like you said, 22, and by the time I dated, I was probably, I guess, 23, 24. But I was like, I was doing good at this. It was like a funny thing from after my injury is how many guys were calling, you know, like while I was in the hospital in a way that they were like, oh my gosh, like, you know, call me when you're better.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Oh, no.
But in
So-
a like a funny, it was a funny way. I wasn't,
okay.
you know, malicious, but just
Okay.
kind of, you know, people don't understand. And
Right.
I was not in a place where I was going to really call, you know.
So did any of those guys from before try to date you after your injury, or were they all not scared or
I mean, I'm still good friends with a lot of them. Like, do I think there's any kind of like romantic feelings from their side? Maybe. I mean, I have some long-term friends, but you know, like our lives have changed. Most of them are like married with kids by now, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, it was a funny thing, just like an experience, you know, to just like be there and be like, oh wow, I was kind of popular. I wish I knew, you know, this before, but just then, you know, the reactions, people were like supportive, but at the same time, like I said, I was in Colorado. I never went back to Santa Barbara, which is where I lived. And I was just not in that place to be like, okay, this is me now. That's kind of been an evolution that, and we didn't have social media and stuff. So
yeah, see, there's no social media. And do you think sometimes going to a new town is good? I think it is, honestly, after an injury. Yeah.
they do. Yeah, they do.
So, okay, so let's talk about when you decided to put your profile on an online dating site. What site did you choose?
Yeah. So gosh, early on, I mean, I think I've probably been on all of them, like I said, and even early on, those early years, that was like when like Yahoo Messenger and like I said, AOL. I had kind of probably moved past that at that point, but I would just like instant message people, and then just get to know them, and that's also like where I, you know, kind of expanded my reality on. I don't know, people all over. And then like locally, when I was ready to date.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think I would say back then, I think OkCupid was around. I feel like it probably was.
Yeah.
If not, like, I mean, may have been like Match.com early on, but that's, yeah. So I would say personally, less, I'm not online dating currently. But like I would say OkCupid, especially like back years ago, was one that I've liked more. I really like the opportunity to have a profile, like we said.
Yeah.
I think I have a lot of things that I like people to know about me, and like things that are attractive, and I've always had like very good you know, like traction with people from the way I'm able to present myself.
So can I talk about your profile a little bit more? I want to know, how did you reference your disability, if so, in your profile?
Yeah, so I'm a social scientist. So like and like I said, there's those periods where, you know, I've been busier than others. So there's times when I had time, and I felt like I kind of got to explore some things. But I've definitely played around with like the difference between having a chair in my profile photos or speaking about it and not. I can say now, I think that it's really important to put, you know, photos with you in your chair. I think I just got to that point in my life early on, and I can definitely say there's some of the people that I have seriously dated. I guess we kind of skipped over that question, but I have been in a number of relationships and one that was an engagement, that kind of thing.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to go back to that. We need to start about how you met him, which was the profile. See, that's interesting for a lot of people, because I talked to a gentleman in a chair, and he's adamant against he does not put his disability in his profile. He feels as though you're putting your worst foot forward, which is interesting to me. So, and I actually am more like you. I always put my disability in my profile when I was single, you know?
Yeah, so like I said, sometimes there have been like times that I haven't, just because I was curious and like, what does this look like? And I think early on, I felt more comfortable like revealing that later. I can say that's something that's changed over the years. I think not only because the way that dating and online dating at least has evolved, but also just like
Yeah.
dating at all. And just getting older, things are different. I mean, the pool shrinks. And when I was young, did not lack at all, wheelchair or not, for people who were like pretty excited to meet and get to know me. And then as you get older and, you know, people's lives get far busier and
Yep.
no one has time to like really, you know, we're not just like playing the field as much. It gets a lot more targeted. And I noticed that like in men too, I've felt pretty lucky that I haven't felt rushed about relationships.
Yeah.
So for me, that's given me time, but at the same time, I see just that there's a lot less of those opportunities to explain. So early on, I felt okay about not having my chair in pictures, but it was also always like I was having to break bad news, even though I don't feel like it's bad news.
Exactly.
I mean, no,
Yeah. See?
but
I know. It's like, oh, I'm gonna have to write that like horrible sentence, and how in the heck am I gonna word it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, like some of the feedback, because it was, you know, of course we've all had negative experiences where, and I like with that one, I think honestly, I just was like, I don't like that rejection. It's, you know, somebody can be really excited about me, like, oh my God, I'm so excited that I found your profile. You sound amazing, and look at you, you're pretty. What's the catch here? And then like, oh,
I know, right?
like,
It's happened to me many times. So yeah, I know.
yeah. So
yes, girl. So that's that's cool. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about the good person that you met that ended up in an engagement, because I think that's cool. I mean, so what was it about the first date that you had with him? Was it that you knew this was maybe someone from online that I maybe should continue dating? Because I think some people out there need a little bit of pointers. They're not quite sure what to look for.
Sure. Well, I mean, I can say for me, like I didn't really ever feel like my disability made me less. I wasn't looking for to settle. I mean, you know, things are different, but I don't know, my disability actually gave me a level of confidence that I don't know that I had as a 22-year-old. Like, I think life was giving me gifts in that way. I was lucky to be living a pretty nice lifestyle, and men were attracted to me, and I was fun, so it's fine. But at the same time, I wasn't ready to just be like, oh, well, whoever. So, you know, I dated a number of people pretty long term. Usually there was something like my the first guy, I met him online. I knew he was moving. So no matter what, in 9 months, he was going to law school. And so we weren't going to be together. Like, and I wasn't. So then when I met my guy, who, and this was all, when was this? Like 8 years ago. I don't like the thing. So I can say this is why I'm single. My own commitment problems, but so often, and I've noticed this with like all of my long-term relationships, they've been really, really, really excited about me, and I have really learned to like them a lot, but there's always been a point where I wanted to do something else. And so so we had they've all been great guys. He was a great guy, treated me really well, but he didn't want to like ever move or do bigger things in life. He was very comfortable with that, and I was ready to, you know, as finishing up grad school, and I was ready to move and travel. And so I think there's been a number of people that I dated more longer term, and they were like, okay, I'm in. I feel like that happens to me like fairly regularly when I am online dating or dating, just that given the wheelchair, they are like, okay, like I thought this, you know, after the first date, okay, I like you, like we'll go on another one, but like really early, they're like, I'm all in. And sometimes I'm like, I'm not all in. Just date. That's kind of thing. And I
Interesting.
feel like it's weird, but it's something I've just noticed that some, and so that can be kind of overwhelming to me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. That's
him and I were
interesting.
together for 2.5 years.
Okay.
It was really, it was a nice experience. He helped me, I think everybody I've dated has just helped me know, what I do want.
Mm-hmm.
Know that there are people out there that are totally willing to, love me correctly and, treat me exactly how I should be treated.
That's beautiful. You know what? People with disabilities need to learn this too, especially when you have an acquired disability like a spinal cord injury, and that's when it's really, difficult too, because you keep comparing yourself to how it used to be, which I think is the hardest. But I was wondering, when you were on dating sites too, were you the girl that kind of would wait for guys to write you, or did you ever go, "Oh, I like you," and then wrote him?
Yeah. So, yeah. As much as I think I'm an empowered woman, I think, this has been my funny, and I think it's SCI related, but honestly, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I know early on, just like a lot of people would write me, online dating was different,
Yeah.
especially on the early days when it was like free or like unlimited, like everything has these parameters now, and it would just be like, oh my goodness, I just got like a million emails. I don't reach out to somebody. But then now, I usually wait, especially when it comes to the having a wheelchair in my profile, like the fact that I'm really interested in making sure not only do I have photos, they're not like ugly, they could still be an angle, but like somebody like, and believe me, people will not notice. Like, I don't know if you know this, but I'm guessing any lady will tell you that I can have a head to toe wheelchair shot, and somebody would just be like, "Oh, I didn't see that," and like, what's wrong with you? I can say oddly enough, like, it's funny to be on dating sites, and I always notice I'll like end up seeing someone else who's in a chair who obviously like has an SCI, and I have we're good friends now, but I wrote and was like, oh hey, we live in a small town, we both are in wheelchairs, and he was like, oh my goodness, I didn't notice you were in a wheelchair. And it's just like, anyhow.
That has happened to me. I've had guys in chairs approach me on many dating sites too, and they're like, "Hey, you're in other wheelchairs." I'm like, "Yep, we're kind of give each other the virtual wink, And sometimes they'll just ask me how my experiences are. I would consider, when I was single, I would maybe go out with a guy. Maybe I did date a guy. That's whatever. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about you.
I don't know the answer to that question, but it's always been like, hey, like, we both are in wheelchairs, especially early on. I just didn't. Now I feel like I'm very connected. I know tons of people with SCIs, but back then it was like, oh, hey. And I think the funny part is generally those guys would be like, yeah, but you want to go on a date? And and I was like, oh, I don't know, I can totally love someone in a wheelchair at this point in my life. But then I didn't know, and I was just like, oh no, I just thought we could be friends. But
that's another topic we could talk about too, because I think that a lot of people have a lot of stuff to say on that. But so I was gonna also ask you. So, all right, so there's a lot. Like, I don't know. So you talked about your disability. So what about some of the worst dates that you might have, people online, like something, how we get those crazy messages from people on dating apps, like, and they'll say something about your disability that just is like, what in the Sam hell? When that happens to you, how do you deal with it? Or do you ignore them?
I would say I ignore the just messaging like that. Something that's just completely inappropriate. I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. I mostly ignore it.
It can be a little bit annoying, I feel like you're out there doing your thing and then someone will write you, hey, can you have sex? I'm like, oh, what the hell? Really? That's what you lead with? You want to know?
Yeah, I mean, not with you, but but I don't like engage with those people generally.
Yeah.
I guess for me, like creepy experiences and something that I don't know that I've not really talked to another woman about, but
Yeah.
I feel like I don't get to talk about this subject enough, which is part of why I was like, oh, this is exciting.
I know. Yeah.
I've so even in San Diego, or I kind of worry about it here in Portland, I think I've been a little bit more trepidatious of being on something like, let's say, Tinder or things that are popular now, just because they're so easy, and then it's like the proximity things. And I have definitely, I lived back home, which is a smaller town in California for a bit, and for like about 2 years before I came out here to Portland. And I was on online dating.
Okay.
Small town, and there are not that many people really in their 30s that are dating. And they're single. It's just the kind of place where you're a college student or you're married. And so it's the same kind of round and round. But I've totally gotten messages from people who are like, I saw you out last night, or I was sitting next to you. And that creeps me out in a way that I just can't handle.
That has happened to me, and like I feel like you're a celebrity, but not in a way that you would like to be a celebrity.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so.
really
I was starting to feel like a weird paranoia that I'm like, oh, this makes me uncomfortable, because it's not the guy you want. It's never the one who said that. It's just some random person who's looking at you and then just decided to be like, hey, like,
yes,
I've seen you, and you know.
Yes, that happened to me last fall. I was on a date with my current boyfriend at a comedy club, and then the next day I get a message from a guy, I think it was on Tinder. Hey, I saw you on a date. You look so pretty. You were laughing. I was like, are you kidding? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That is so creepy, because the wheelchair, unfortunately we can't hide it. It's just there.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
That sucks.
So,
all right. So nowadays, so you're kind of staying under the radar. So what's your situation now? Are you even just talking to anybody, or are you just trying to just meet someone in real life?
So yeah, like I said, it's I've been less inclined, and then just like life-wise, really like busy. And I feel pretty, like, the thing is, I feel pretty socially like stimulated, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, I'm not dating, and I should, like, I tell myself I should put myself on online dating. I always have like a month every year when it's cold or something, when I'm just like, oh. And then people are like, let's go out on dates, and I'm like, oh, do I have to? Which is weird. I used to like it. It's a lot. It's kind of a big undertaking, and like the emotional upheaval is like a little bit hard. I don't like rejection. Said. So I don't know. There can be, and like I said, like we kind of touched on the way things are now, given like the swipe life. People really are like, hey, you seem great, let's go for coffee. And I'm definitely somebody who wants to talk to. I need to get to know someone. I have never been on a terrible date. Not saying I've only been on good dates that were great, but I've never been on a terrible one, because I've never just like agreed to go out with somebody and then
away.
Able-bodied, friends that are single, and they have lots going for them. They have terrible experiences all the time. And I'm always like, no way I would, I wouldn't just go up and have a date with somebody I don't know anything about, and then be like, why am I with this creeper?
I know. Online dating has evolved in a bad way. I don't like it either. I feel bad for anyone. I mean, I met my boyfriend on Tinder, but I tell you what, I hate it. I hate it. You should try Bumble. I don't know if you decide to try another app, because the girls are,
I poked around on it. Also, like with me, I have less independence on my phone, and I saw that Bumble, and I know Tinder, they have a web-based app. But for me, that's way better. I can do more on my phone, but like honestly, it's kind of a hassle, and I just don't want to deal with it. So that has been, I guess, an excuse, but it's not a good one.
That's great. Well, I'm glad that as we get smarter as women, we know how to date, and it's good that you figured out the smart way for your emotional health to do it the right way, because listen, we all, as we get older, we learn. So that's awesome. So I have one more question kind of to ask you, which is, which advice would you give to someone who has a spinal cord injury or a disability, who's thinking about using online dating or apps to meet someone? So like, what would be just some basic advice you'd give to some young girl or maybe some older lady?
Sure.
Doesn't know?
Yeah, no, I have, I got this. Well, I mean, for a woman, I would just say, for everybody, just be yourself. Like, you have a lot to offer. Your spinal cord injury did not take that away. I mean, if you were a jerk before, like, I'll work on that. You know, if people are going to want to date you the same. I've seen so many successful relationships of friends, so I'm really not worried. I know we're totally capable, and you know, people want to love us, which is a nice thing. But yeah, I would just say, don't let your disability be the thing that stops you. That is not, like, it's going to make it harder. Of course, it really will. Just because people will try to overthink it. But I mean, I think if you like lead with who you are, people are receptive to that. And I mean, I know it's a like kind of cliche, but I'm sure some people haven't heard it, but it's like, it is a good filter. You know, there are a lot of like jerky people who weren't worth their time that, you know, I think I learned that a little bit, like with my transition. Like, there were people that I was really close to that were very interested, that were just like, oh yeah, like, no, you know, and that's fine. You know, I didn't need them. They wanted that. They wanted me then, who was a very different person. So, and then also, so in my like internet dating sleuthing, like when I did come across like guys in chairs, often I just would cringe because they would just say something really depressing, like, well, like, you know, it sounded like, I'm really sorry that I'm in a chair, but like, don't worry, they would just, like, I don't just know, I read a lot of things, it just sounded negative, like, or like, and often like people just say, if you have a problem with that, like, whatever, like, it's combative, and you know,
it's all never. You're right. It's defensive. I like when they say, "My lap makes a really good seat." That's a good.
There's plenty of positives.
Yeah, you gotta be funny. You're right though. The defense combative stuff and profiles has to go. That's some really good advice. I like that. So awesome. So, okay, well, I think we should maybe end it there because I've taken plenty of your time and, you know, picked your brain on this topic enough. So I want to thank you again, Brooke. This has been awesome, and hopefully we can chat again sometime.
Yeah, no, I'd love to.
Okay, awesome. Have a great day, okay?
All right, and good luck, everybody.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Brooke. They will need it, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.